Yeah, especially also I think with sexual partners at that time, because there's at least also people that I've been speaking to with penises, they tend to have a really hard time talking about this issue right then when it happens with their sexual partner.
Because you're like so frustrated. You're like so frustrated from like all the like. I mean, I don't know how about how you guys had your childhood and life, but like where I come from, it was a very bad thing not to be able to be aroused. It's like it's like all your masculinity is like depending on this one little organ, you know. So the frustration of it is huge, and it's super hard to speak about it while it's happened. But I think it's a part of the solution, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I've had that same sort of childhood situation. I think my relationship to sex was very different growing up. But I mean, like, yeah, there was a fear of like things like masturbation. That's for sure. Like, as a good fearing Christian, like masturbation is obviously like a sin. So there used to be a lot of times when I would actually try to make it not count by like trying to masturbate by not masturbating, which didn't really kind of work in the grand scheme of things, obviously. But then I think a lot of it was also, yeah, like when you're younger and you're looking at like different types of like popular media where like premature ejaculation is like a butt of a joke, which is always just like yeah, of course you can try and find like different ways to kind of like demystify it by bringing it into the media, but half of the times like that's kind of more like in the sort of you're that's the sort of thing that's been laughed at, as opposed to being like related to or like having some sort of like compassion to it. I think a lot of the times that it's happened in my personal life, yeah, of course, when you're younger, it's a different thing entirely because you're just like, oh my god, like I will be like mortified to have this situation occur, and I think this is mostly from like maybe being in more like straight relationships. So I think with more like gay relationships, there's a different type of interaction I find, and especially with queer relationships, there's a massively different type of interaction because there's not really so much confinement to the sort of like particular roles, which is also in this patriarchal sort of structures of like the man is the one who has to make sure that the woman is going to be pleasured and enjoy themselves. Not the woman has her own autonomy, can enjoy herself whether or not the man is there, but like mostly also the fact that like they are also together and experiencing a different type of like connection or union. So I think in later parts of my life, like without the camera, I've learned to kind of just be more like, okay, well, that happened, and yeah, that happened. Sometimes you make like a little joke about it, and you kind of just like take a moment and you can deal with it. Other times, just call it what it is. You enjoyed yourself, and it was a great time, and the time is not over just because you came. And I'm really happy that this person managed to get me off in such a quick way. Like, it's kind of nice in some sort of ways. Like, not the end of the world. In fact, like, it should feel kind of like, okay, well, that was fun and that was like really nice. And of course, like, yeah, I came really early, but hey, you know what? Like, how about I do something to you? Or how about we chill and relax and we take a hug, or we may get some water, or we may have a smoke, or we might have something to eat or something. Or there are other different ways to kind of like be like, okay, well, yeah, that to reduce the sort of like extremity or enormity of the situation. And yeah, for me, most of the times it's just like, if it happens, then I kind of just laugh at it because I'm just like, okay, well, that was great, thank you, and then I can kind of carry on basically and be like, okay, well, now that I've already kind of come, how do I also kind of look out for you, and so on.
Yeah, I think in that regard also because when we talk about sex, we always think about penetrative sex, and to see all of the different ways that you can have sex that don't have to include penetration, essentially, and all of the ways that we can experience pleasure without necessarily penetration is also a really great way probably to move away from this idea of the person with the penis always having to perform or be hard.
I also think we just because we use everything else, we put it under the label of foreplay. You know, maybe that is also a mistake. That maybe we should just steer away from that. It's not foreplay. It's just as much sex as everything else that we're doing, right? Even when we have our clothes on, as soon as we kind of like had that exchange, it's go time. This is sex already, you know, and yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
The look of love. Yeah, it starts off with a look, right? Like, or any sort of, yeah. Also, like foreplay is like one of the things from the 90s that should never come back. And in terms of like the actual term itself, like, you know, Dadinho was right. Like, this is something that it's not like completely separate from penetration. And also I think like again that comes into like this format of penetration is the only form of sex because that is the only one that's seen as valid, which completely erases other types of like sexual orientation and identity. And then more on another note, this whether you can or cannot come or like get erect, yeah, there's a level of vulnerability there. Basically, it doesn't go according to the script that we've been fed like how many freaking years, which we also have to deprogram and demystify. So a lot of times, like this level of wanting, of like having to be vulnerable and completely taking this role of like being the penis haver, therefore being like, and if you're cis male or whatever, like, you know, being the person who has to perform, or from a cis male's point of view, taking the sort of like, you know, particular role of like the man or so on, taking that away and being like, okay, well, here's a situation where I'm going to have to like, you know, kind of show this level of vulnerability, which can also actually add to the intimacy that like, you know, is being shared between one another, which, yeah, is sometimes frightening, but it's also really rewarding.
Totally. And also, I feel like it is also connected to the understanding or to this idea that like you need to make a person come for them to have pleasure. If you didn't make them come, you're not so good. You know, you're not fulfilling. You're not fulfilling what you should fulfill. And I feel like to be so centered on if I came or not will just take the fun out of sex, because this like 20 seconds of orgasm is not what sex is, for me at least. Like the connection, the touch, the feeling, the talking in between. Like I feel like that's where the magic of sex is. And if we just, you know, live by society rule of like, if you did not make a person come, you are not worthy. That's put us in a very stressful place, you know. And I feel it in my, like, before I got opened into queer culture, and before I came out as a bisexual, and before I opened myself up to the community and to this community, my structure was also like this. Like, I was thinking to myself in my early 20s that if I don't make a person come, I'm not good. You know, like coming is a button that I press and someone come. It doesn't have anything to do with connection. If the person feel comfortable, if they had a nice day, if they have a lot of things on their mind, you know, like, so yeah.
As it goes for foreplay, it also goes for aftercare, or whatever you want to call it. Because as soon as you put this fore and after, all these like appendixes to the words, it just gives it another weight. You know, like it's something from before and after. Well, no, it's just like it's play play and care. It's just part of it, which is it's still going. Just because we're sweaty and there's all sorts of juices on our bodies, and it doesn't mean that we have to stop. We can continue, and it's still the same thing.
Yeah, I think since I started working with sexuality more and experiencing different types of sexuality or sexual experiences myself, I also thought it was so strange that we thought that because sex is something that is supposed to bring us joy and pleasure, or at least, when two people or more want to engage in that, that we think that it is linked to so many things that put pressure on us, rather than just really focusing on what it is supposed to do, bring pleasure and play with that. And there's also so many beautiful things that you can, of course, do with a non-erect penis as well, that people don't really know about, maybe even, or focus on. So I would be curious to know, how do you think that is already in porn productions? Do you feel that this is more represented as well, or this is also shown, or do you feel that there can be a lot more done in regards to moving away from this idea that sex is always penetrative and
So on this subject, I do believe that in some way porn can depict this more, but also I feel like to put all our, to take all our education from porn and to be like, porn don't show this, porn don't show this. It's not our only medium for sexuality, and to say that it's like this because porn don't show it enough, I don't think it's so right. Maybe we just need more porn that shows other things, because I do enjoy to see an erect penis, and I also enjoy to see a not erect penis, I just like to see penis, show me the penis. So yeah, maybe I will let you finish the question.
Do you think, okay, I'm going to try and rephrase it. Do you think it would be helpful for the topic of performance anxiety, for that there would be porn also representing other ways to have sex?